I felt a funeral in my brain, and mourners to and fro kept treading, till it seemed that sense was breaking through. And when they all were seated, a service like a drum kept beating, till I thought my mind was going numb. And then I heard them lift a box and creak across my soul with those same boots of lead again. Then space began to toll as all the heavens were a bell and being but an ear, and I and silence. Some strange race, wrecked, solitary here. And then a plank in reason broke, and I dropped down and hit a world at every plunge and finished knowing then. Oh my gosh, OMG. Okay, now I'm going to give you my interpretation, but just like I've said before, all of poetry, you have a kind of a circle, you know, and if you say it's about mermaids fighting with laser swords, you're wrong, right? But you know, it depends. If you the interpretations can be many, right? As long as it's kind of inside whatever this circle, right? And if there's a true meaning, it'd be in the middle. There's probably not a true meaning, but if it's inside this circle, then and you can prove it. If you can prove it with evidence from the text, then I can't take your reading away. So I'm going to give you my reading today, and you tell me what you think. She was one of the lingering bad ones in her whole life, just like me. Her whole life, she struggled with, I in this mystery, here we stand. Like, what is this all about? What happens after you die? Does anything happen after you die? Why are we here? Are there corners to the universe? Oh my, you know, is there a God? Is nature God? You know, they're the biggest questions of all, right? She struggled with it. You struggle with it. I struggle with it. Everyone struggles with it. Mother Teresa doubted that God existed for the last decades of her life. There you go. And so society keeps coming in, especially her in her time period. The Christians kept coming and beating on her brain. Hey, you know, you're supposed to believe this. Hey, you know, you know what you're supposed to believe, right? You know, you're going to hell, right? And so I see this as a funeral for her doubt. Finally, I'll just capitulate. Finally, I will assent. Finally, I will give up. I felt a funeral in my brain, and mourners to and fro kept treading, till it seemed that sense was breaking through. Sense, remember, much madness is divinest sense. Oh, sense, this is the sense of society. Now notice the uppercase S. Normally, poets and authors will use an uppercase to show divinity. I don't think that's the case with Emily Dickinson. I think she just uses the uppercase for many different reasons, but perhaps just for emphasis. Sense, like, hey, look at this word. Hey, look at this word. Look at this word right here. Right? That sense was breaking through. Mourners to and fro. That sense was breaking through. No, right? So it's a kind of a slant rhyme. Fro and through. That takes more intelligence. Fro and through, because now you're like, it makes you stop and think about the rhyme more, because it's so kind of awkward and nearly a rhyme, but not really a rhyme. And that makes it more persuasive and more rhetorical, because now we've talked about it. Sent mourners to and fro. And when they all were seated, a service like a drum. And notice the S's. When they all were seated, a service like a drum. It's like a funeral. Alliteration, right? It's a funeral going on. Funeral, come on. Like a drum. Kept beating till I thought, what's the drum? This drum is like society telling her what to do, what to think, what to be, how to be. But just constantly messing with her. Hang on. Constantly beating on her, beating until she just finally gives up, right? Kept beating till I thought my mind was going numb. And that's kind of it. You just kind of just give up and you just go numb, whatever. Just tell me what to do, what to believe, what to think, right? And then I heard them lift a box. And what's the box? Her coffin. Whoa, her coffin. But it's the coffin for her doubt. And then I heard them lift a box and creak across my soul with those same boots of lead. Again, then space began to toll. Now imagine the boots. Boom, 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 boom. They're lead boots. Boom, boom, boom. They're all beating. The mourners to and fro. They're going to and fro. They kept beating till my mind was going numb, right? So it's this beat. You can hear it now. It's a very auditory poem, right? Now, certainly it's a 14er, right? But it's very broken. It's the meter and the whole meaning of a 14er is broken, not only by the dashes, not only by the commas and the thesaurus, but by this rhythm. Doom, doom, doom. It's like beating. There's a beating, ringing the bell. And the creak, all these auditory sounds, it's a creak with those same boots of lead again. Then space began to toll. Like space. Like, is it space, the outer space, or is it the space between you and I, or both? Began to toll. Bing, 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 bing. Like ringing the church bell for church. Ding, ding, ding. Come to church. Ding, ding, ding. Like ringing a bell to warn that the Mongols are coming in. Bing, 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 as all the heavens were a bell, like the entire universe is one bell. Bing, 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 bing. And being, but an ear. Being, like who I am, my whole existence and everything is just an ear, just a big old ear, right? Just a big old, the whole universe is one bell and I'm an ear. Ding, 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 ding. And then being but an ear. And I and silence. Some strange race, wrecked, solitary here. It's a paradox, certainly, because the heavens, the entirety of all the heavens was a bell, and I'm just an ear. And now she says, I and silence, some strange race, wrecked, solitary here. So I take that as the universe, as the bell is the society telling you what to think, what to be, what you are, what to believe. And I, and silence. Silence is the opposite of society telling you what to be and who to be. Silence, and they are some strange race. And they're wrecked, solitary, there, here. And then, so I love it. So then she has this idea of a plank is a wood, just a piece of wood, right? You walk the plank, right? The pirates walk the plank, matey. But a plank is just a piece of wood. And so a plank, then a plank. So the plank and reason's like, she takes a step onto the plank of reason. This plank, this metaphor, this plank is reason. And then a plank in reason broke. So she's like, okay, all right. You got me. I'll believe what you want to do. And I'm going to try out your plank. And she steps on the plank of wood. And what does it do? It freaking breaks. You all said this was all what I should believe, so I tried it. I stepped out on this plank of your reason, and it broke. Damn you. And she dropped down and hit a world at every plunge and finished knowing then. Remember I said the enemy of education is not ignorance, because ignorance is like an empty bucket. It's knowing. When you know everything, well, when you're already there and you know everything, you're doomed. Remember the cave. Get out of the cave. What's the difference between waking up and knowing you're in the cave and thinking you're up here? You got to wake up every day and seek the next level, right? So she says, and I drop down and down. And whereas a person who's not very intelligent, who's maybe has dead set kind of paradigms infesting their mind, they might see a world. They might see one option or two at the most. But she, being a very intelligent, very introspective, very thoughtful person, hits a world at every plunge. It's like she falls out of the top of a tree, and every branch that she hits as she goes down is a world, a different world of possibility, of knowing, of perhaps. And then she finished knowing then. That's the moment she finished knowing. Wow. Wow. And so is that the only interpretation? No, no. But that's the way I see it. And that's the way I see it from her, just kind of knowing her and knowing her life. She has some straight rhymes, soul, toll, ear, here. But notice she breaks the rhyme at the end, down, and then. So notice you're expecting when you get to the last line, you're expecting another rhyme. You have rhymes everywhere, but she says knowing then. And so that puts more emphasis on the then.